You know, I was initially going for an extreme diff win. But maybe we could tie. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. I do want to have it on and keep it on at all times. You know, fun fact. I have 15 minutes to give you my thoughts on how I think the England versus Japan game is gonna go. So let me start this time right now and let's get into it. So, obviously, every single match in the group stage has been meant to essentially re-establish Blue Lock in a different way. Or, I suppose, establish them in a way at all. For the original match against Nigeria, that was just supposed to make Blue Lock look like monsters, which they definitely were. They definitely were. They curb stomped my people. And that's my odds. But that aside, the second match was meant to establish that Blue Lock, while they're like viable, real viable, you know, they almost tied against France, the top team in the U20. Sweat scale on the side, that's still kind of crazy. 2 goals in a system that wasn't even properly theirs and they came up with on the spot that Karasu stole in the very same game. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of bonkers. But they weren't established to be top dogs, right? It reestablishes Japan as the lower end, something that needs to be worked on, developed, evolved still. And obviously, England is going to be a game of establishment, of showing that, yes, while they are relevant enough to be viable and stomp on fodder, and are not powerful enough to not absolutely violate the strongest, they still stand somewhere relevant as they take on the home, the place of birth, the origin point of soccer, aka England. So, what would that mean for this game in the grand scheme? I think the very interesting idea that this game is going to have to tackle, if it's going to end it anyway, right, which it will, obviously, is the idea of making it convincing that Blue Lock's not going to be fine, right? Right? That's the one thing that Nomura Sensei and Kaneshiro Sensei are going to have to sell us on, right? Everybody in the mama already knows that Blue Lock is not getting knocked out in the group stage, right? Right? You know that. I know that. We know that. But there are multiple ways that can happen. While a loss is basically off the table, like, I don't even know what I would wager. If Blue Lock loses in the group stage and gets kicked out, I will. Thing is, though, I look fine, bold. It doesn't look no. I will. I will show feet on camera. I will show feet on camera. So I never ever planned to do. I'll show feet on camera if Blue Lock loses. But obviously, the main thing, the main question is Blue Lock going to win or tie? I think the door is open for them to tie. And I think it would work better if they did tie. Mainly because, funnily enough, the after effects of France as a game. Very specifically, France did something to Blue Lock and the power scaling of it all, the in-universe power scaling. And no, people are going to be like, Pencil Man, power scaling doesn't matter. This is a story about soccer. But why do you think Nanase is a worse player than Baro then? Because power scaling matters to a degree. And the thing is, with with Japan being able to go at all diff, right? Even if, because I've heard all kinds of diffs that the Japan versus France match was. France? I cannot speak. The Japan versus France match was. I've heard high diff. I've heard low diff. I heard mid diff. I heard negative diff. France didn't not a single sweat drop on any of the France players. They must have negative diffed them. How they get 2 goals off if they were getting negative diffed? I don't know. But regardless, due to that, we still do need to establish the rest of the world beyond these 2 monsters as viable threats, right? Because I don't think we're immediately going into the elimination stage and fighting Germany. Call me great. I don't think we're really doing that. I also don't think we're immediately gonna go mink with Spain either. We still have more teams that we're going to have to play through. We still have more characters we're going to have to establish and work with. We still have more things that we need to do before we actually get to what are essentially expected to be the big bad matches. Whether you think there's going to be a France rematch at the end of it all, whether you think it's going to be Spain as the final opponent to build into Isoshi Sei's narrative and Ren's narrative and by proxy Isagi's narrative, whether you think it's going to be a shock horror upset with Germany and it's going to be a rematch between Isagi and Kaiser to determine who is the next divine emperor of the world or whatever. We still have more things to do. So I'm honestly hoping for something devious, something dangerous, something diabolical. And the narrative has technically opened the door to a tie. I think, if I remember things correctly, feel free to correct me, because I'm very forgetful. But if I'm not mistaken, if my toes do curl appropriately, I think even if Blue Lock ties this game, they go forward based on goals, right? I mean, depending on what the score is. But, well, actually, no. I think because a tie would neutralize this, right? A tie would neutralize this whole section here, right? So, if Japan ties, the goals of this game doesn't matter. Sure, England did still raffle stomp Nigeria, because of course they did. But 4 goals to 4 goals in both England games, so they're tied there. And then, assuming they tie here, they're tied in the amount of goals there. Then they both have 1 win, 1 loss, 1 tie. But Blue Lock did get 2 goals off on France, and did not, and I believe England only got 1 goal off on France, right? Because, yes, am I dumb? Am I stupid? Win, loss, 0 draw, different point, yeah. So England only has 3 points. Am I dumb? Am I stupid? But regardless, I think a tie can happen and it can still work. And I think a tie would be good from a narrative balancing perspective, especially with specifically how Teddy and the battle of aesthetics are being set up here between the 2 teams. I think it'd be very interesting for Blue Lock to once again run into a wall that's like, not a superior wall, but a wall that meets them evenly, right? Because Suitable Destiny, as we see it, is sort of egoism distilled and concentrated, and at the moment currently better, right? It won. According to sweat scaling, there was this I still can't believe people saying France was a negative diff match. That's crazy. That like, I mean, I feel like I'm looking at you funny when you say low diff, but negative diff. But regardless, if that was meant to be a showcase of how Blue Lock still has a long way to go and grow, I think England can be a fantastic way to show how Blue Lock has come a long way, is able to restructure itself to go even further, but even still, they're going to be struggling immensely to maintain anything in the rest of the World Cup. And I think this match also needs to do double D, on reinforcing why Say is necessary, right? How Say could be the key to level up Blue Lock once more. Because the issue with the definitive victory over England, right? And by definitive, I literally mean 1 goal, right? Say it's a 4-3 match or a 3-2 match, right? Even that would be like, oh, well, so they went possibly mid-diff with the strongest team without Itoshi-Sai. And now we're giving them a new General 11 member properly. And he's got the greatest midfielder in the world as far as we know, or one of the greatest midfielders in the world. Yeah, it feels like a little bit of imbalance. But, if we have this England match push Blue Lock to the point of a tie, I think it'd be interesting. Especially with the whole idea that Ego sets up in the previous chapter, where he's like, hey, your achievements are yours and your failures are mine. Burn that into your brains. The idea that if they are hit with something that is simultaneously achievement and failure could be really interesting to see them carry into the actual knockout stage of the World Cup. The idea that they did succeed. They moved on, but they didn't succeed definitively. They won on their previous successes. They won on their own goals, but those goals weren't even really theirs, right? Because the 1 point difference that they have over England, where they scored 2 goals, or not, that is true, where they scored 2 goals on France, and England only scored 1 goal on France, that main key difference is 2 goals not born of egoism, but of suitable destiny. Right? You see what I mean? So giving them the success at the cost of failure could be a really interesting way to drive the narrative forward. Especially with Isagi, who, of course, the centerpiece of the arc, the centerpiece of the narrative. Especially with Isagi, characterizing Blue Lock as this super dark horse, one teetering on the brink between success and failure, and specifically this idea that Isagi is still trying to refine and define himself, and he's specifically trying to use this game to do that. As he says in the latest chapter, he very specifically is trying to devise a new Yoichi Isagi. It would be interesting if the Yoichi Isagi is enough, yet isn't. It's that thing you can only really get out of a tie. You can work so much narrative development and progression into a non-definitive victory. One, you get the benefits of Blue Lock still being able to struggle just generally. You get two, the idea that Blue Lock isn't just struggling, but then needs an extra piece to get that further beyond, and that piece could be Sei, that piece could be Nagi, that piece... I mean, like, could it be Kira Shindo? You may be hard-pressed to believe it could even be Nagi. But that aside, it benefits on the ideas of Blue Lock being in this unstable state, this metamorphosis. Because as Isagi himself acknowledges, and as England themselves have clearly acknowledged in this game, Karasu is the heart now. He is the core, he is the beating soul. But even with his quote-unquote acceptance of egoism, clearly it's a Karasu system that is based on the philosophies and concepts of Hugo's suitable destiny. So, framing it in the way that this weird meld between egoism and suitable destiny isn't even enough to transcend England, so how is it going to be enough to transcend France when they inevitably rematch, or whenever someone comparable to France shows up? It could be interesting. And obviously you have these ideas of who will be joining our team playing into that mixed philosophy as well. Itoshi Sei is obviously an egotist, but he's an egotist that folded to destiny. The reason he hates Luna and isn't a striker anymore is because he went and got humbled. Not Luna. I keep saying why it's Bunny. It's always Bunny. It's Bunny Iglesias. I don't know why I always say Luna, but essentially, when this man got humbled, he doesn't like that anymore because he ran into a number one that was greater than his number one in the sleep. He was destined to become the world's greatest midfielder now because he went and got humbled, and all of that can be built into the England match. So I think I want that tie real bad now. And it's crazy to think, right? Because initially I had it as win, loss, win, right? Or win, tie, loss, or nah. I think it was like win, tie, win. I would have to go back and check my own old videos just to make sure what my thoughts were initially. But especially considering the state the narrative is in, the state the characters of the narrative is in, just considering everything that is... Sorry, just read Cheetah's text here. But regardless, considering the state that everything is in right now, I think a tie is the best way to simultaneously push the narrative forward in a way that basically has to happen because we're not losing here and getting kicked out of the World Cup at the group stage, but at the same time keeping the narrative balance of it all intact. Because at its core, as much as I love power scaling Blue Lock, as much as everybody, we all love sweat scaling, Blue Lock is a narrative at the end of the day, and it's a narrative surrounding characters. And while, hey, I'm still very 50-50 on whether or not Japan's going to win or lose the whole thing, I don't know. It really depends on how long you think Blue Lock's going to run. That aside, we are in a position where Blue Lock is simultaneously too strong, yet not strong enough, narratively. And tying with England, the birthplace of soccer, that's the way to fix that. Having this team of eccentrics, this team of aesthetics, this idea of 1 to infinity if the coach is 0 to 1, and the idea of Blue Lock being 0 to 1, and the infinity consuming the individual, that is intriguing. And of course, the final battle that Blue Lock faces, the one entire team that's focused on scoring their own goals, their final obstacle being this crazy defensive wall they need to burst through, yet them only being able to put a crack in the shield and not shatter it. The aesthetics, the narrative, the character dynamics, they all kind of go crazy. And once again, I'm talking about all this, not even really discussing how Teddy is going to be used narratively to contrast and work against Isagi, which he will be, right? Like, as much as I like Agi, as good as I think Agi is, despite his weird design, man, I didn't realize you were going to be a precursor to everything being weird, Agi. Like, why didn't you warn me? But that aside, he's not going to be the main core. It's going to be Teddy. And in that case, while it is Teddy, I'm interested to see how all of that is going to go and develop, and ultimately push Usagi to realize that a person without ego may have ego, but a person with ego may find themselves lacking it. The idea of the battle of aesthetics, how these two teams are going to parallel each other, how they're going to bounce off each other, how the dynamics shall grow, bounce off each other, and evolve. That's intriguing. That has my toes curled. That has me excited to see how this game is going to go. Even when before I was with people saying, I kind of don't care, give me the elimination stage, I want to see Itoshi say. But now I'm intrigued. I wish they looked better, but I'll take what I can get. But of course, these are just my thoughts on the early game. How I want to go. What I view things of, like, the narrative tie of it all. The intrigue that could go there and there. But I'm out of time. So please let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you've been OAT in this video, well, if you've been OAT in this video, please leave future on the line. Let's go with that one. Future on the line in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that link to notifications so you don't miss out on any videos that come with the channel. Also, I want to thank you so much for watching. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off.